your concerns. And, and I can't wait to get this lesson from Seth here. Here's my problem going into the 2022-23 season. And by the way, I'm not going to talk about Nakobe Dean's talent. I'm going to talk about this. Before we bring him up, how long did it take Seth to learn the nuances of playing defense in the Mike backer? This kid's never seen it, never played it in the NFL. Never. He's got to make front calls. He's got to understand strengths and weaknesses, hash marks, all of that. Cover tight ends. Is he good enough? You think Nakobe Dean's covering George Kittle? I don't. And you got a first-year coordinator. Had a little experience in Chicago. Why in the world would the Eagles take out a Mike linebacker who had 160 tackles a year ago and expect this kid to step in there? You think Nakobe Dean's going to cover TJ Edwards' 160 tackles that he had last year? That's a big ask. And run the defense? Let's bring our friend Seth Joyner in here. Seth, there's a lot of pressure on him, isn't there, this year for him taking over that spot at Mike linebacker with the Green Dot?
Well, I think there's a lot of pressure on all of the players who are new to this defense. Listen, there's pressure on Jalen Carter. There's pressure on Sean Desai. There's pressure on the two safeties and the two linebackers. I am, Dan, in that camp of let me see what you do, prove it to me, prove to me that you can or you can't do it before I get to a place where I want to say what a guy can't do. I've just been around too long and experienced too much to know, and been one of those guys that everyone doubted. To know that there's nothing like making people eat crow when they tell me what I can't do and what I can do. And I am the captain of my own ship. If I can put the work in, put the effort in, and do the things that are necessary, then the sky's the limit for me, and I could care less what everybody outside is saying.
All right, Seth, how long did it take you to learn the nuances of playing a Mike linebacker in the National Football League?
Well, I played the Mike back on third downs.
Okay.
I played some will when I was, early in my career, and then I went over to the Sam backer. I played a lot on the ball over the tight end. And then over solid defense, I was off the ball to the strong side. Listen, our defense was so much more complex than anything that that these guys today are running and doing. It literally took our entire defense almost 2 seasons to get to a point where we could execute with proficiency without a lot of thought what it was that, Buddy was trying to do with his 46 defense. Now obviously there were some defenses that were pretty simplistic, and it was, you get it really quick. But the whole key to playing and being an effective and productive player on the defensive side of the ball is being able to not only understand your job, but being able to study the game and study your defense to the point where what you do defensively is pretty much second nature. Now, when I can start during game plan week, when I can start delving into the mind of defensive coordinators and delving into the mind of the quarterback and trying to understand how they're going to attack our scheme and what they do, I think that's when you've arrived. But anytime you're standing over the ball and you're not sure what you're supposed to do or where you're supposed to go, what your gap is on run two, what your gap is on run away, that safety's not talking to you as he drops down in the box, or he's dropping down, on the outside in cover 3. He's not letting you know whether you're a hash player or a flat player. Coaches will get to a point where, they say, hey, we just need you to know what the hell you're supposed to do. Don't wait for that guy to tell you what you're supposed to do. You should know it. So it takes some time. It does take young players, very few young players ever really come into the game and just right out off the bat, just jump in and are effective and ready to play. I submit to you, that's probably why Nakobe didn't play a whole lot last year, because he was probably doing a whole lot of getting used to the NFL and getting used to new terminology and a new defense and a new way of doing things. I think it'll be easier for him this year, because I think a lot of what they're going to do is going to be similar to, what Jonathan Gannon did. I just hope and pray that it's a little more aggressive by nature. And if Sean Desai's press conference was any indication, then, we're in for a much, much more aggressive defense.
Seth, don't you agree, though, compared to a year ago versus what you have now? I mean, you had experienced defensive tackles. Shit, Jerome didn't even start his first year in the league. I think you had Keith Wilkes in there, and you had someone else in there too. I forget. There were two experienced guys at the tackle position. And last year, the experience was everywhere, especially when they added Linval Joseph and they added Sue. This year, you got an experience in Fletcher Cox. You got a guy who's never played it down in the NFL. You got a guy who underachieved a year ago in a different role. Now he's going to be given the opportunity to be a starter in Jordan Davis. But then, Seth, you got a new Mike linebacker, and behind you, you have massive question marks at the safety position. The entire heart of the defense, Seth. What you're trying to do is, you're turning back everybody. If you're outside in the perimeter and they got good perimeter players, you're setting the edge, and you want everything to run back into the pursuit. Well, shit, man, communication might be a massive issue early on in the season here, because you got a lot of guys who've never really experienced what they're going to go into, especially in the first 4 games of the year. Do you agree?
I think on both sides of the ball, because of the way that they practice. They had their first practice today. It was 1 hour.
Jesus.
I'm not going to make a big deal about it, because it is what it is. I figured I'd just throw that out there for public consumption and let you guys do with it what you will. I think that the offense is going to have to carry the defense, in my opinion, throughout the first 4 or 5, maybe 6 games, because you've got young guys, you've got new guys, you got a new coordinator, new terminology, and given the fact that you don't, practice the way that you used to practice, that time to digest all of that is going to take a little more time. Now, why do I say, the offense is going to have to carry the defense? Because, listen, they were a year ahead of schedule, in my opinion, last year. Okay. No one expected for that team to get to the Super Bowl. We expected them to contend to get a playoff spot, but nobody expected them to be the number 1 team in the National Football Conference and to win the NFC championship and go to the Super Bowl. No one expected that. Now there are some expectations. And why do I say, that the offense may have to carry the defensive side of the ball? Is because defensively, the biggest piece that they lost was Isaac Seumalo. Okay. Isaac Seumalo. Now, you've got a lot of veterans now at every other position on the offensive line. And what can you do? You plug a young guy in with all that experience around him. They're going to be communicating. He's going to be clear, very clear on what it is that he's supposed to do. A.J. Brown is back. Devontae Smith is back. Dallas Goedert is back. Every other offensive lineman except for Seumalo is back. People will go, well, the running backs. Well, let me tell you, this is my opinion about the running back position. They got so many players at the running back position. And we know that on average, the running backs only going to get 15 to 16 max touches per game, which means that the competition at that position is going to be off the charts. Okay. Every single time one of those guys step on the field, they're going to be trying to put their best foot forward, and they're going to be playing like their hair is on fire, because they know that their playing time is limited because of sports science. Not because they can't play more plays, but because sports science probably says above 15 to 16 touches for a running back, the percentages of injury go up exponentially. Okay, with all of those pieces in place, the Eagles going into the Super Bowl with a number 2 offense in the National Football League behind the Kansas City Chiefs. The only thing that stops this offense from being much more explosive than they were last year is injury. Jalen Hurts is going to be in his 3rd year in this offense.
And field position on the defense too, Seth. If the defense is not giving them good field position, that may hurt them because longer extended drives are going to be needed.
Maybe, but I think that that offense is just so explosive. They can make big plays. They can make big plays like that. And Dan, I've seen games last year because I chart every play as I'm watching the game where they go 15 plays, 16, 17 play drives. So whatever it is that they need to do, they can get it done on the offensive side of the ball. And listen, they scored 27 points a game last year. They may need to score upwards of 30 this year, especially through the first 5 or 6 games until the defense finds its footing. Listen, that defense is not going to give you 70 sacks this year.
No way.
That's an anomaly. Okay, that's like Nick Foles throwing 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He was never in his right mind ever going to do that again. And that's how I feel about, the sacks. Are they going to be one of the premier pass rushing teams in the National Football League? Absolutely. Absolutely. But 70 sacks, I'm not.
No
that's
way.
Hard for me to believe.
45 to 50, I think they get this year, somewhere in there.
Well,
I think it's good.
I think they'll be over 50.
Okay. All right.
Just because, listen, if they start getting into games in the second half of the season where the offense is blowing people out and defensively, I've been talking about this, the minute that they picked Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, I started drooling because I wish that I could be a defensive coordinator with these pieces. I mean, when you get teams in a passing situation because you're leading in the second half of football games, think about this 5-man NASCAR package, okay? You got Jalen Carter on the nose, Fletcher Cox at 1-3.
You put Davis on the You put Davis on the nose, Carter on the 3.
Not in the NASCAR package. You can't rush the passer.
Okay.
So you go Jalen Carter on the nose, Fletcher Cox at 1-3. You kick Brandon Graham down to another 3.
Yep.
You got Hassan Reddick on one side and Nolan Smith coming off the other side in your 5-man.
Yep.
Can you imagine what that looks like? Even in your 4-man, you just pull BG out.
Ton of speed.
And you still got, even if BG is on the field, and you take Nolan Smith out, they're going to be a force rushing the passer. But I just don't believe that 70 sacks again is on the slate for them.
Seth, let me throw this at you. You mentioned the running back position that's going on in the NFL, and you and I have talked about this, and I'll say this to you: I don't know what these running backs are moaning about. Why are you crying to owners in the NFL? You should be crying to your union. Your union's not doing anything to get your back on this, and NFL owners are setting the market. They're telling you what you're going to make, and they're always going to tell you what you make. The salary cap is communistic. The franchise tag, I think, is communistic. They're telling you what you're going to make. Can you imagine telling Jerry Jones, you can only sell your team for $1 billion? You can't maximize your talents in the NFL unless the owners agree to it. And if they do, they are silent collusion. So you're bitching at the wrong people. To me, in my opinion, you should be talking to your union on getting your back.
Well, I think they had a little come to Jesus with all the top running backs, and the NFLPA was there.
But I also think, Seth, it's got something what you said. 17 carries? Sorry, guy. I'm not paying $18 million for that.
Well, that's the Eagles, Derrick
but
Henry,
I think that's a trend now because they're going to do all this shit by committee now.
Yeah, but Derrick Henry ain't touching the ball 17 times in a game.
No.
They didn't, the Atlanta Falcons didn't draft that kid out of Texas to carry the ball 17 times a game. They'll get creative and figure out other ways. They're just, Nick Chubb is not touching the ball 17 times a game. There are certain teams that don't value the position. And that's problematic, but if they set the market. The owners are the ones that set the market. If you think
Why
that
would Barkley sign that deal, Seth, for $900,000?
Say it again.
For incentives he can't hit.
Say that again now.
Why would he sign that contract for $900,000? Dude, the money they put in there is $900,000 more than what he would have made with the tag. And get this, next year he's a year older and he's going to have more tread on the tires. They're going to use that. If people think the Giants are going to come to him next year and go, hey, you know what? You hit your incentives. What a great guy. Here's a 3-year deal. People are high. They're not going to do that.
Well, listen, I think the injury is a portion of this dynamic that I think is, really hurt him. Because I think at the end of the day, people out of their damn mind if they think that Daniel Jones is more important to that football team than Saquon Barkley. And you turn around and Daniel Jones demands $45 million and they give it to him. But you got a running back who you're going to feature. You're going to hand him the ball. He's going to be the engine that makes your offense go. And you offer him the franchise tag $10.5 million, So I really think that Saquon, when it's all said and done, I think his number, is somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 13 if he hits all his incentives and everything. And then it's like, hey, you know what? You're not going to franchise tag me again next year. If I come out here and I tear it up and I'm a Pro Bowl running back next year, you tag me if you want to. I'll just sit out the rest of the year. I think he is not the type of guy to sit out. But right. I think if they make the decision, if they can't come to an agreement on something that's livable and doable with him, I feel like next year is the year where, he puts his foot down and sits out the entire year, lets that second year of the tag wear out. And then after that, he's a complete free agent. They have no control of him anymore.
I say this too, when the Giants were looking, as soon as they tagged him, the Dolphins offered 2 1s for him. The Giants said no. And then get this. Yesterday he walks into camp, Seth, and today they announced Andrew Thomas gets $117 million, $67 million signing bonus. And you just took a shit all over Barkley the day before for $900,000. And get this, everybody around him, Seth, is getting paid. The guy who made that happen for Jones and for Thomas all got the money, and there he is begging for $900,000. He's got to get 1,350 yards. He's never rushed for over 1,320. And they're making him put these incentives up there, Seth, that it just seems to me, again, here's a prime example of the weakness of D. Smith taking knees when we had a guy in there, Gene Upshaw. Whatever you thought about Gene at least cut a deal that was good for the players, and it was a 50-50 split. This thing's 42-48, 52-48. Dude, this guy, man, I don't know. They don't do anything for the players anymore. That union, we have the weakest union in professional sports. You see that guy Jalen Brown or that guy up in Boston he got all that money, $300 million. He ain't even a top 20 guy. Barkley's crying for $900,000. Boy, hey, Seth, you and me, we needed about 5 more inches, man.
Hey, listen, man. I think a lot of it is you can't tell me, when you look at all of these, when you look at what happened with Lamar Jackson, you look at the running back market, you can't tell me that there isn't, that it's not collusive, what the owners are actually doing. They're setting the markets. They're talking to each other. Don't you dare give that guy, after the Deshaun Watson contract, you're now going to see teams that are, speaking the same language and doing a lot of the same things. And the problem is, the biggest problem, in my opinion, was hiring DeMaurice Smith to be the executive director in the first place. Listen, there's no executive director of the National the NFLPA should ever hold that position if he's never put on a pair of shoulder pads and wore a job. Plain and simple. Because you don't know what you're fighting for, okay, unless you've been in that situation. Now, DeMaurice, hey, he's a lawyer. But we could retain all kind of lawyers with the money that we have in the PA. Are you kidding me?
Right.
You didn't have to hire that guy, you know? And then he turned around. The thing that really pissed me off the most was last year. He decides to, sign an extension. Well, he advises the guys. There's no way in hell. There's never been a collective bargaining agreement more than 3 to 5 years.
10 years.
Yet with a year left on the deal, Dan, he allows these guys to sign a 10-year extension. And then 2 weeks later, the NFL goes into TV negotiations and signs, billions more. Okay? So how much money did they leave on the table for one?
Billions.
And the other thing is, and then you hear whispers that, I might be coming to the end and might be ready to walk away. Hell yeah, you are, because you sold the freaking players out. You probably got a little kickback because you're Goodell's little lapdog, Now, you can't be mad at the NFL because they know what they're doing too. Who did they go after? They didn't go after the top third of players in the NFL and say, hey, we're going to give you more money. The majority of the players they realize are on the bottom half. Hey, let's give the practice squad guys, let's kick them up some money. Yep. Let's kick the bottom, 10%, on the active roster a little more money. And what did they knew right away that if the players have to vote for an extension on the CBA and they give them these carrots, they dangle these carrots, the dumbass players don't realize that, hey, they don't know what's really going on. So they vote, they get a 10-year deal. The majority of those players who signed and voted for that, guess what? They will be out of the league before this CBA runs out. So the owners now have a 9-year window to collude any way that they want. And the players and the union have no recourse whatsoever, to go back and renegotiate a CBA because the CBA is locked in because of what DeMaurice Smith did. I thought that was appalling to me that he would, take that deal. Absolutely appalling.
I got one last question for you here before we close up here, Seth. Can you, in your heart, with a guy who had 1 year, one exceptional year, and Jalen Hurts, 1 year, we've had 3 different opinions on him, Seth. First, it was this shitty pick. The first year starting, it was maybe we need a new guy. That's why we got 2 ones in his previous April draft. He panned out to have a great year. You give him all that money like you gave Wentz with limited amount of sample size. In your opinion, does 1 year make a guy elite in your eyes? To say that you call Jalen Hurts an elite quarterback, can you say that with only 1 season of play that call him an elite player?
Well, let me ask you a question. Who's elite? When you look at the NFL, who's elite?
I think the guy in Cincinnati.
Of the best quarterbacks that's left now that Brady is gone, who's elite?
Mahomes. I would say Burrow, 2 AFC title games in a row. Super Bowl 2, conference title. Most of them after that are on ability and not resume. And people look at Allen and they look at Herbert and to some extent even the guy in Baltimore having more talent than Jalen Hurts. And the resumes might be a little – well, the money too. And again, the money sometimes clouds it because the guy in Arizona is not a $46.1 million guy. So I think sometimes when people line that up, Seth, they go, well, he got the money. He must be elite. That don't make you elite. How do you look at that? How do you look at that word, Seth?
Elite is hard because, in my opinion, there's only been in the last 3 years 2 elite quarterbacks.
Yep.
I think that Burrow is trending towards elite. Okay. And people will say the thing about Hurts, oh my gosh, I see it on social media. Oh my God, he got all these weapons. You know, he has no other choice but to be as good as he is. What kind of bullshit is that? People act like Joe Burrow doesn't have great weapons. Shall
He
I go
does.
down the list of the weapons that the guy has?
Higgins,
And
Jamar
and and,
Chase.
and he's a football savant with all of these great weapons around him. You know, if they would just get him an offensive line, he'd be unstoppable. Okay. So, in my opinion, Brady's been elite. Mahomes has been elite. All these other young guys, you know, they haven't done it enough. They haven't done it long enough. They haven't done it consistently enough for us to say that they're elite. You know, so I don't understand. You know, Jalen Hurts has accomplished something that, you know, Allen, Lamar Jackson, and
Herbert.
Herbert haven't even come close to. Neither one of them taking their team to the Super Bowl. Okay, and people will come up with all these excuses for, you know, why Hurts got there and all these guys didn't. But the facts are the facts. The same way, you know, when the team, an offense has success, the quarterback gets most of the credit. When a team doesn't have success, the quarterback should get most of the criticism. You know, for all the talent and all the wealth of talent that Josh Allen has had around him. Come on, man. And I know you got to go through Mahomes. I get it. Okay. But you were right there twice and you couldn't get over the hump. Okay. So when you're talking about Hurts and the money, you know, that you've given, he's a different animal, man. He's a different animal because he is nothing like Carson Wentz. You know, Carson Wentz was the most insecure, egotistical, you know, guy that the Eagles made a mistake in signing him to an extension 1 year too early. And I said at the time, what do you have to lose? You know, the guy's coming off all these injuries and whatnot. You bent and you got rid of Nick Foles to make sure that he felt like he was the guy. You know, let him play out the last year. You know, and let's see what happens. But they gave him the money, and when they gave him the money, that made the situation even that much worse. You know, so you know when you look at Jalen Hurts, you got to consider. I posted on Twitter today a video that this guy put up, and it talked about, you know, it showed Jalen back at Alabama going through what he went through, and Stephen A. chopping him up on First Take, you know, and it went all the way through to where he is now. Okay. And I've been saying this all along. If there is a guy in the draft that was built and made for Philadelphia, it's Jalen Hurts. Because all you got to do is look at all the things that he's been through and look at how he's wired. You know, people say, well, you know, the jury's still out. We don't know. The guy's done nothing, you know, but continually got better everywhere that he was. Yeah, he went to Alabama. He had a good year. Then he stumbled. Okay. Tua came in, took his job, give him a lot of credit for staying there. Most players would have jumped in the portal and been gone. Okay. He stays. And because he stays, Alabama wins another national championship or gets back to the national championship that second year. Okay. Then it's like, okay, Tua's the guy. So if I want to play at the next level, I need to transfer. I got to get out of here. He goes to Oklahoma. And in one season, Lincoln Riley took a guy that everybody said couldn't throw the ball. Okay. And he comes in second in the Heisman with 38 plus 100 yards passing, 35 plus touchdown passes, another 1,200 yards rushing, another 20 rushing touchdowns. Okay. And then he gets to the Eagles. He still has his passing deficiencies because that leap from the college game to the pro game is so, you know, huge. you know. But over time, what has he done? You know, his first year as a starter, a little rocky. What does he do? He goes out to California, gets with Tom House, works on all his mechanics and whatnot. Comes back this year, he's a Pro Bowl quarterback, takes his team, you know, to the Super Bowl. What else do you want? The guy's trending upwards. Now, is he elite? I won't say he's elite just because I don't think he's done it long enough. But is he trending towards elite? Absolutely. If he's not a top 5 quarterback, I don't know who the hell is.
Absolutely. Hey, Seth, thank you so much, dude. I mean, by the way, man, I'm going to be coming back east a couple times this year because we got a brand new home at King of Prussia with the Hooters there too. And so we'll be doing stuff with the people at Oceans as well. I can't wait to see you again, man. It's going to be awesome to see you. Thank you so much, my friend. It's an honor being friends with you, man. Thank you, my friend. We'll see you soon.
You got it, man. Hey, listen, make sure you catch up with me when you're in Philly. I'll have you come in the studio. You can be my guest on the Seth Joyner show one week.
Absolutely, man. I'll give you a heads up the week before that, all right?
Perfect.
Thank you, Seth. I appreciate it, brother. Have a great day, my friend.
Take care.
That is the great Seth Joyner. All right, folks, do me a favor. Please hit the like button. We so appreciate when he comes on, man. I love listening to him. Just absolutely great. Xander, we thank you. Big Joe, we thank you. Tone, you're kicking ass as always. You know how much I love you, man. Till tomorrow, 3 to 6.